Hello, everyone. I'm playing Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, as you can see. But I have more of a thing where I have to expose Nintendo. Okay? I've played Nintendo before PlayStation or before PlayStation 2. And I've played PlayStation 2 before the original PlayStation. And then I got an Xbox 360. But in Xbox 360, when you use their online service, like the PS5 and PS4 does, they now charge subscription for like online access for features. Um, but that's besides the point, okay, guys? Um, what I'm gonna be exposing is what I know about Nintendo, okay, guys? Because I literally called Nintendo of America and I tried to give them advice. The customer, a lot of the times, has information that they believe why Nintendo or any other company that makes mistakes go down hard. Okay? So, this is me exposing my experience when I called Nintendo customer service. Okay, guys? So, the first time I called customer service, there was a male employee. Okay? And I let him know that I asked him, why isn't the GameCube emulator on the Switch, the first Switch? Okay, you know, the original Switch known as Nintendo Switch with the dock or Nintendo Switch Lite Portable, because those two devices actually can run a Nintendo GameCube game. Okay, if you think about it, the GameCube wasn't really that powerful of a system, okay? Some people said it was powerful than the 64, right? But let me just tell you guys the hardcore darn truth. Because I used to be a Nintendo supporter. I was always buying Nintendo games like Pokemon or Pokemon Red and Blue, Pokemon Sapphire and Ruby, Pokemon Omega Sapphire and Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Sword and Shield. But then the thing was, there was a next gen after Sword and Shield, which did terribly, and that game was Scarlet and Violet. They keep fucking up. I'm gonna say the curse word because I am to a point where not only am I mad because I'm having issues with my phone because it's already up to date, and me and my dad has a cell phone because the first time when we went to Spectrum, okay, I asked him if he could buy me a phone, but then I was like, oh, you know what, let me check with them, because my dad had already bought the phone with the Spectrum phone service. And so I was like, Dad, I'm gonna check with them something real quick. So I talked to the Spectrum employee and I asked them, is there a way for me to transfer to take down my T-Mobile service and replace it with Spectrum internet service? So, but the problem is the date of how long the phone lasts. So, when I think about that issue, I'm thinking about other issues. Okay, guys? Business wise. So, and a lot of these reasons why a lot of marketing is being affected is due to politics, but not the Democratic politics and not the independent politics. But even though some independents voted for a guy who is now putting tariffs on countries and more tariffs on top of that on the countries when it comes to resources. So, like all these businesses that get their products and the people from the countryside that bring their products here, that at first they didn't have to pay so much because back then, yeah, we had tariffs, but we had tariffs that wasn't tampered with. And yeah, our president now tampered with tariffs, trying to mess with people's businesses. You know, if they own a business that they sell products or food goods, all that is high up in price. And now, I'm just so pissed, man. To a point where now I'm thinking about what I had contacted. Oh my god, man. Phone freaking. I'm not checking that. So, when I think about a lot of services that are making mistakes, even Spectrum, I feel like they're making big mistakes. Okay? You pay for a 12-year unlimited plus plan or an unlimited plan, which allows you not just to have unlimited data on your cell phone, but also pay less of investment on your phone every monthly, meaning every month. Um, but in order to pay for that monthly limit unlimited plan, if even if it's in good condition, your phone, because you're getting the unlimited plus plan, but the both of those plans are pretty darn expensive. And so when I think about what Spectrum is doing as a mistake, and a lot of times when you tell all these businesses that you support their products, and let me tell you something, guys, I called Nintendo customer service, okay, guys? And so at first I was talking about the prices of the games. And I let them know, yeah, the Switch is understandable. But the new games, and plus the Switch 2, they said that it would be as powerful as the PS4, not the PS5. Okay, guys? So it doesn't have the same power as a PS5, meaning that it shouldn't have issues, right? The original Switch, the the Switch Lite Portable, shouldn't be a problem with GameCube games, and the GameCube itself was not really all that powerful of a system. But here's the thing, here's the kicker. When you played GameCube games, okay, it's a pixelated game in a way. 3D CGI pixelated, okay? If you play Pokemon Colosseum or any type of game on the GameCube, okay, around the art of the character, okay, or the graphical wise, okay? So any type of building in Colosseum, in Pokemon Colosseum, was kind of pixel line, pixelated line. So you know how when you draw a picture, right? Or when you paint something, you're always gonna have to put a line and outline it. And that outline is basically the key to making it look the way it is. Okay. Like, think about this game that I'm playing right now. Some games don't have outlines, but they're completely high quality. Okay. Pokemon Colosseum wasn't high quality, and it didn't require a lot of power for CPU to play the damn game. So when I called again Nintendo customer support, a lady employee, a female employee, answered my call. Okay, and this was the same number that I called for customer service and let them know about the pricing of the Switch 2 games. So I was talking to the female employee, and I was like, why are you letting your franchise, you as an employee who takes responsibility for the customers, okay? Because there are trustworthy customers and there are stupid customers that will tell them, oh, then don't do this, do that. You know? They'll give them the wrong advice. And so I think Nintendo should just part ways from Pokemon. And yes, I know they have a huge bond, but that bond has to be severed. Okay? And so I tried to tell the lady employee, the female employee, that they should just stop the lawsuit. Tell Nintendo Japan to stop the lawsuit, because Nintendo of America is part of that service, okay? But it is an American version of the Japanese service, and they do get in contact with the Japanese market of Nintendo, you know? So, as soon as I try to talk to that female employee, who is the customer support employee, she said she was going to send me an email to help me, you know? But she didn't send me that email. So I checked my email thinking I was going to get an email because she said they were going to send me an email, okay? And then she hanged up Why? I was shouting at my sister because I didn't know what my sister was trying to tell me, and so my sister cooked food. And because I shouted, that female customer support employee just hanged up on me. So the second time I called that lady and I tell her, because I didn't know it was the same lady. So I called them and I said, "Hello, I was talking to a young lady who is customer support to try and help their business by giving them helpful advice so that way their business won't struggle as badly." Okay? I just tried to tell them, tell and report to Nintendo Japan that the lawsuit is stupid and they shouldn't be supporting Pokemon at all anymore. Because Pokemon Company, they're basically saying they own the rights to everything Pokemon related. But did you know Pokemon, the original Pokemon arts style, okay? The old Pokemons from the Kanto region took inspiration from the art style of the monsters in Dragon Quest Monsters. Okay? And so like all of their other Pokemon games, I've heard that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the starters, the artwork for the starter Pokemon was made by a fan person who originally died, passed away in a hospital bed. Okay, guys? So, and then they say, "Oh, we owe the rights to this, we owe the rights to that." And so Legends Arceus happened, right? And so when they had Legends Arceus out, Pocket Pair already had released Palworld, or should I say, they have already started developing Palworld. And then what happened? Nothing. They didn't bother to put a lawsuit that time until now they realize how much harm it's doing to their franchise because of how better it is to them. You know, Pokemon Company themselves, they're aware that Palworld is killing their game because it is doing better than their game. And now they're trying to switch the lawsuit rules, against Pocket Pair, if you had not looked that up. And what was the first lawsuit that they try to put? Guess. It was against the pals. Yeah, some of the pals had somewhat similar look because the eyes and the face of the pals, okay? But they were tweaked, okay? Pocket Pair used AI generated Pokemon art and then they tweaked it up and changed it. And guess what? They have more content than Pokemon in just one game. Pokemon Sword and Shield was actually better than Scarlet and Violet. See, the type of content that I'm mentioning with Pokemon was that they took away certain Pokemons to shiny hunt. They were still obtainable, okay? You can still find them in the open world. If they're legendaries, you you can find them in the open world depending on the location where that legendary is located and how you have to get the legendary to appear. Okay? But the problem was that none of those freaking legendaries were shiny huntable. They were all shiny locked. And if you think about it, Pal World proved them wrong because they had something similar to shinies, but they are not called shinies, okay? They are lucky pals, which people are now calling them shinies. Even I call them shinies because why? They take somewhat inspiration with the glowing around them from shiny Pokemon. But the color of the pals, they don't change. But that's okay, you know? I'm okay with a pal sparkling but not having a different color. I'm okay with that. It's because the pals, when they sparkle, they look cool. I'm just gonna let you know. Even if the pal doesn't have a different color variant as a lucky for the first few areas. Okay? The cool thing about Pal World, okay? The cool thing about the art of the pals is that when you go to different parts of the area, kind of like in Pokemon where you have Kalos, or no, wait, I should start for the very beginning. You have Kanto, you have um, Orange Islands, but Orange Islands is just the same as Kanto, okay? There was only a few new Pokemon, and that would be one new Pokemon. Oh no, actually there was quite a few new Pokemon. But in Pokemon Johto, which was Pokemon Silver and Gold as games, but when they made Pokemon Johto Journeys, they started making new Pokemons, okay? But the problem was the next gen Pokemon games, not the remakes, the next gen, okay? Because, and there's people that are stupid in the Pokemon community that are usually saying, oh, these Pokemon in Pokemon Sun and Moon and X and Y, they're shiny locked. Uh, you want to know something? A lot of those legendary Pokemon that people said they were shiny locked, even in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, people who said that those certain Pokemon that they were saying was shiny locked. They were not shiny locked, okay? So, like, so after that, when Sword and Shield happened, okay, it wasn't as bad as Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. Okay? Even though I did enjoy the story of Scarlet and Violet. Okay, guys? But the problem is a lot of things that they could have improved, which they now are deciding to improve, which is the way, and this is a terrible improvement, okay? This is not a good improvement. Some people are like, oh, that's cool, that's good, I prefer it this way. And other people in the community of Pokemon, they're saying, why can't we shiny hunt them in the overworld? Because, Power World did overworld sparkles, okay? And so if Power World can do something that takes inspiration from the sparkles in Pokemon when you find a shiny, and in Power World you can even lucky hunt legendaries, okay? In Pokemon, when they started bringing Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, they could have easily, and people in social media says otherwise. They say, oh, it can't be done, it can't be done. Gym Leader Ed, a YouTuber, says it can't be done. But the other reason why Pokemon Scarlet and Violet failed, because if you check their reviews, their real reviews, okay, it is bad. I mean, even though they sold more copies, it is bad. Because even people like me who played Scarlet and Violet digitally, I literally uninstalled the game. Because this game was fully online service and didn't have an option where you could trade between your two switches offline. And that's where Sword and Shield was successful at. I feel like Sword and Shield, when they were working on Sword and Shield, I feel like they did more for Sword and Shield than for Scarlet and Violet. Okay, that's just my opinion though. People could hate on me, tell me shit like, oh, you're just toxic, you're just mad because, oh, the shiny hunting, the legendaries are not shiny huntable. No. See, the game was good. I actually liked the story. And the majority of people hated the story, okay? So you had part of the community that loved the story of the game, okay? And that enjoyed the anime, okay? But a lot of those people, when they saw what Power World was doing, what Pocket Pair was doing with Power World, a lot of the majority of players that used to play a Pokemon game, because there are a lot of Pokemon fans that also play Pokemon inspired games. And they're wondering, why is Pocket Pair getting sued and getting put in a lawsuit for no damn reason. And let me tell you guys why it's for no reason. It's because Pokemon was originally putting the lawsuit against infringement for the art style of their pals, because they looked similar to the Pokemon for some of the art of their creation of the pals. And then afterwards, because they failed to put the lawsuit against the pals, they decided to change it and put the lawsuit and infringement towards mechanics. And when they were trying to put the lawsuit against the mechanics because they failed to put the lawsuit against the pals, they started putting they put examples for the Joy-Cons. That don't make no sense, okay? Because Pal World uses actual controllers, okay? It don't use Joy-Cons. And plus, to be honest with you, people out there who are still supporting Pokemon and putting toxicity towards Pal World, because you're telling Nintendo Japan, oh, they're copying your artwork, they're copying your mechanics, they're copying everything that you put in your game. It's not like Pokemon even owned those mechanics. And it's not like they owned a lot of them art styles. Okay? They owned some of the art styles, not every art style. Actually, let me be frank. Let me just change it. I changed my mind because they don't own any of the things in Pokemon. Okay? Because some of those Pokemon, when they were working on Scarlet and Violet, they ran out of ideas for starters, okay, for starter Pokemon. So when they released Legends of Arceus, yeah, the only 3 starters they could think of was one from Hoenn, one from Kanto. So they had to put a variety of the old starters in their game, but they look different. They're basically Hisuian form, right? Or however you say the word. So, but it's the same damn thing. It's like what Power World is doing. It's like what Pocket Pair is doing with Power World. They're tweaking the art to a point where it doesn't look completely like Pokemon. Okay? Even though some people, when they see a pal, they say, oh, that pal looks like Eevee. But its name and its designs, the design is tweaked. Even though they took a generated art of Eevee, they changed it. Okay? And then they called it something else. And then came the Pal Sphere throwing mechanic. Okay? See, Pal World was now in a lawsuit for the throwing mechanics. Guess what? They didn't actually lose. They're just delaying the inevitable. Okay? They have strategies of their own. I may not know their full strategy, but the way I see it is they're just holding them down. They're holding Pokemon down. And Pokemon is trying to, how you say the word, they're trying to put more lawsuit to change it around because they have already failed against lawsuits against mechanics, certain mechanics. If you haven't noticed, they added fishing in Palworld. But you know what? I think that's a W. I think that's a win for Pocket Pair. And I think it's a win because they have proof and evidence of all the games that Pokemon is taking inspiration, not just from artwork, but also the mechanic system that they keep saying they own. They don't own the mechanics. They own the art style of the Pokeball, okay? But they're not putting that lawsuit against the artwork of the Palsphere. Not completely, okay? They changed some ways. You know, it's just Pocket Pair was like, okay, we'll just change it, right? So that way, Pokemon and the court itself will be like, oh, didn't you tell them to change it? Didn't you tell them not to put that mechanic? So they changed it, right? But Pokemon Company and Nintendo Japan and Nintendo of America, because Nintendo of America, because Palworld's US version of the game also gets patched because of Pocket Pair existing in the US also. But they didn't always existed here in the US. They started off in Japan because they were a Japanese small indie developing company. I'm not answering that message. So they're putting lawsuits and then they're trying to change it around to make it look like they're talking about something different in the lawsuit, that they're trying to put something different in the lawsuit. But all they're doing is putting the same damn lawsuit. Instead of saying it, they're trying to confuse the judge. Okay? And this is why Pokemon Company is gonna fail. And Nintendo as a whole, they are losing a lot of money. Okay? Because if they failed the lawsuit and they failed the infringement, let me just tell you this right now. Because Pocket Pair is actually trying to turn around the lawsuit and put it back against them. Meaning, if Pokemon loses the lawsuit, which they will definitely lose the lawsuit, but there's no telling when, because this lawsuit is still going on. So, if Pokemon lose the lawsuit, guess what? Now they lose all privileges for certain system mechanics that they try to put a lawsuit against. Meaning, now, after Pokemon loses the lawsuit, they're gonna be forced to start from the beginning, square one, with the original mechanics that they used to have, which is you no longer throw a Pokeball. It is going to be back to retro style and still have that open world, but it'd be like Sword and Shield again. Okay, guys? Because in Sword and Shield, they never had the throwing mechanic. So that means if this lawsuit goes through and Pocket Pair wins the lawsuit by turning it around in their favor, they get a lot of the mechanics back. and Pokemon will lose a lot of mechanics in their game. Pokemon will lose a lot of things, and they will lose their good reputation. Okay? In the beginning, when they had the Game Boy version of it, okay, they never bothered to prevent people from playing Pokemon inspired games, meaning Pokemon games that are exactly Pokemon, but in emulation, you know? So if you downloaded a Game Boy Advance emulator and decided to stream it, they didn't care what you did, okay? Now it's at that point where Pokemon Company and Nintendo Japan and Nintendo of America are being greedy, okay? Any content creator who plays Power World or plays a Pokemon fan made game because of the music, okay? Because they never did this before, okay, guys? We had cartridges for the Game Boy that had Pokemon fan made content, okay? And there are fan made Pokemon cartridges. They're not just an emulation. They're not just um, Game Boy emulator games. Okay, guys? If you look up on Amazon, okay, you will see that there are physical copies of Pokemon fan made games. Okay? Even the 3DS games, they have fan made games of those on on the regular DS. You know, the old DS, even though the old DS no longer has online service, you could still buy physical copy games that usually are like a lot of the DSi games are always offline compatibility. Okay, guys? And now Pokemon Company themselves and Nintendo Japan, who supports Japan Pokemon service, and Nintendo America, who decides to not get involved, which they are already involved because they are changing the US version of Power World. When Pocket Pair brought their business here in the US, basically it took a while, but Nintendo of America decided to do what Pokemon and Nintendo Japan tells them to do. And yeah, I understand Nintendo listens to Nintendo Japan, okay? Because if Nintendo Japan didn't exist, and the parent company of Nintendo, which is in Japan also, if those two services die out completely, where because there are chances of that too, but there are also chances where Nintendo won't have any resources to make another portable system or console or anything. That is what I looked up. And yeah, that's a thing. Think about it. What happened to Sega? They rushed. But Nintendo they're abusing their promises. They are making lies when they promised they wouldn't have done that. See, Pokemon Company tells people when you play our Pokemon games, that's the way they say it, okay? For their end. I'm not saying my game. I'm saying the way they pronounce their announcements, okay? When they announce a game, they say that they are giving people freedom to enjoy the game. So, if people have the right to enjoy the game, right? Shouldn't they have the rights to enjoy a fan made Pokemon game? And let me just say one thing. I went to that Ball Gamer streamer. I went to that Ball Gamer stream when it was starting up, but wasn't fully started. I put a comment, okay, saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 is canceled. Which, yeah, I admit that was actually misleading. But I also mentioned that Pocket Pair is winning the lawsuit against Pokemon. And to be honest, I used to be subscribed to that Ball Gamer because hey, I love it was entertainment when I saw his reaction. I saw him enjoying the shiny hunt. Yeah. But then when someone tells, not tells, when someone asked that Ball Gamer if he would ever make content on a fan made Pokemon game, he responded like this. I don't play fan made in Pokemon games because those are just rip-offs. Of course they're rip-offs. And of course they're gonna have same Pokemon. But then they had an evolution with those Pokemons in the fan made Pokemon games that don't look the same, but some of them look similar, okay? Because a lot of these fan made Pokemon games, they also created their own type of looking Pokemon. It's like, let's see. There's actually a few, like maybe a bunch of fan made Pokemon games that the artists of that fan made Pokemon game, yeah, they make some of their own Pokemons into the game. And they're like legendary Pokemon. And that game has more content than a regular Pokemon game. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because when fan made Pokemon games exist, there are content creators who want to take inspiration and create their own game and make their own business out of fan made Pokemon games. And that's why those fan made Pokemon game cartridges exist, okay? Because some of the Mons are not style of art from Pokemon themselves. Some of them Pokemon art styles were just randomly created without even a Pokemon generated art style. And that makes no sense. Why take down fan made Pokemon games when a lot of them, yeah, some of them are just like the original Pokemon? But there's a thing called Pokemon Fusion, okay? And this is a fan made Pokemon game where you can combine the looks of every Pokemon. You can fuse their typings, okay? And it's like it's like when you played Sun and Moon for the first time, or no. Um ah, X and Y for the first time because they introduced a new typing, a few of them actually, because that one new typing was combined with another typing just for one Pokemon in X and Y. And if you think about it, Ruby and Sapphire, okay, guys, and Silver and Gold, they had some Pokemons that took two typings, okay? But fan made Pokemon games, they tweaked a little bit of the Pokemon's art style because of the guy who made the game, the person who made the game, also created some of his own art style Pokemon like Pokemon. And they look nothing like an actual Pokemon. They're just Pokemons that this person created and implemented into the game. And I remembered when the first time I heard about Tales of Tenario, and this is when Roblox never existed on PlayStation or PlayStation 5, because the PS4 version of Roblox is playable on the PS5. So, but the way I saw the way that Tales of Tenario originally started off getting built up, right? So, if I remember correctly, if I looked it up correctly, from people who actually tried the original game of Tales of Tenario, meaning the original style that the person who is a YouTuber tried to make it into. Okay, because it was pixelated, because the art style was pixelated, just like a Pokemon in a Game Boy Pokemon game, they almost got him, okay, when he first started developing his Tales of Tenaria game, when it wasn't announced from him on Roblox, okay? So now, because they try to put a lawsuit on him, he said, okay, then what should I change? How should I change it? What should I make it in my own way? So it's like you have someone telling you what to do and not to do. As if you're a game developer, I'm not a game developer, but I know things because when you see businesses are basically something that is involved through politics, okay? Uh, like when you run a company, running a company is basically doing politics, okay? Because, first of all, let me just say game is politics. And the reason why it's politics, like, because it's a business service, Sony owns the PlayStation 5, but marketing is politics, regardless. And leadership is politics, regardless, right? That's just me putting an example between the both. Okay, presidency is politics, but it is a different politics. It is based off of leadership. You vote for someone who can get the job done. And what has our president done? And what has Nintendo done alongside Pokemon Company? See, I used to enjoy Pokemon, okay? I used to enjoy Pokemon inspired games like Nexomon, Nexomon Extinction. I used to stream them before I ended up removing all the content that I had in the YouTube channel I have now. See, but the reason why I removed a lot of my content from the channel is not because I wanted to get rid of the Pokemon inspired Let's Play content. It was because of what Pokemon Company is doing now. And plus, the other reason was I wasn't proud of the way my content in the channel itself turned out to be. And so I also started trying to improve the logo of my channel picture and channel background, okay, behind my profile picture. I made my own character logo as a profile picture. I made my own background logo that has the picture and also says John Gaming. So, and I've seen a lot of YouTubers getting banned just because they have the word pokey in it. You know? It's so dumb. And I don't know why Nintendo of America just says nothing and just goes along with it. So they, I understand that they take orders from the Japanese company of Nintendo. Yeah, they do. And if you look in the internet, they will have misleading information, and you would have to search it in a different angle, in a different way, by saying those words in a different direction. And then, you know how when you search up, will Pokemon ever die out as a business? It can, but they don't say it can. And then you can also search up, if Nintendo runs out of resources, will they focus on software instead of hardware, like what Sega started doing recently a lot often? And yeah, it says yes. If Nintendo doesn't have the resources necessary for a next gen console, and let me just tell you this, guys, the CEO of Pokemon, I believe, yeah, uh, no, actually not Pokemon, the CEO of Nintendo Japan, he said that there wouldn't be any more Nintendo systems. Does that even ring a bell? Because that was already explained way back, okay? When the Switch 2 was already coming out, was already here. They put an article stating that they will no longer be working on Nintendo consoles anymore. And so when you search on the internet browser, because now these days, in this time of day and year, in this future, we have AI voice command, okay? So basically, we could search anything through voice by talking in our phones in the internet browser. But sometimes, yeah, when you try to search by voice, it will sometimes search the opposite. It'll put some words in there that you wanted it to put, but then the rest of the words is confused, you know? It's like they say, okay, guys, this is a little, um, how you say it? A little wisdom, okay? Any type of computer, any type of device, any type of system, you can easily confuse it. Okay, guys? Because there was a time where when my dad first had the cable box from Spectrum Service and gave me a cable box in my room, and yeah, it was usually known as Time Warner back then when they had the cable, okay? And they had online service, meaning you just plug the router and modem in the spot where it connects to in the house. We all know that, right? But like, if you click a button, like, you know, Time Warner, when they used to be called Time Warner, okay? The first time I have ever tried to buy certain channels, and I was terrible. I was a terrible kid. I'm not gonna lie. I used to do the wrong things. I would always try to watch a movie on Movies on Demand or try to try to put a purchase of Cutting Edge on Demand. Cutting Edge on Demand, that used to be on Time Warner, was, you watch anime, you watch cartoons, you watch things that were in Toonami and Adult Swim. They had a variety of different cartoons and anime franchises. So when Spectrum was originally Time Warner, when they were releasing cable and internet, because my dad told me when Time Warner existed, they wasn't called Time Warner, and they were just a phone business. Okay, they would just sell phones, and then they evolved, and they became Time Warner, and so they had cable, they had internet, but before they had the internet, they had the those old style cables before they had the new style cables alongside internet. So back then, we just had regular cable, regular channels. Like, we didn't have a lot of channels when I was a child. And, like, but like, as soon as I was like 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, they evolved, okay? And they changed their brand. Why? Because they just wanted a change. But now, when they changed their brand, their company brand name, let's just say a lot of that is due to a leader who tries to abuse other businesses, if they don't change their brand, the government will try to do something to that business and the branding of that business. And so I also learned another thing. Like, you know how Sony as a business, as a studio exists? When they made movies, they have Sony Entertainment, but Sony Movie Entertainment. And then you have the regular Sony Entertainment, which is basically, I believe, a variety because now they combined it and they call it Sony Entertainment instead of Sony Movie Entertainment because they originally worked on movies and worked as a studio for movies. And then what happened? There was a history where they had a variety. They had games, they had movie studios, because they do have studios, okay? And they have a bunch of studios now all in one building. So it's not just Sony Movie Entertainment. They just they just call it Sony Entertainment Studios. So because it's studios, that means they can use it as a, how you say it, as a brand for a variety of things that they work on. They have a bunch of separate studios, and the developers that put the game in the PlayStation platform, the developer has to rent a studio in their business, and Sony will sell the product, and they both get money, but the publisher don't get a lot of money like Sony does because that's how business works, okay? If you brought a product and you let another company globalize your product and sell it through their end because it's their service, they're gonna be the ones that make more money out of the product and give half part of the earnings to the guy who made the product, okay? But now these days, they even have shows where there's a few people who are business owners and they're trying to find something to sell in their market. So they try to buy products from random people who invent really cool looking things. It's like there's this thing that with this show where there's one lady and there's, I think, three men or four men and they're all business owners that are trying to buy a product for their marketing, okay? And this one guy that had a product, it was pretty cool. It was a type of bag that works similar to a bag that usually has cement, right? And I thought, whoa, that's pretty cool, right? So you just put the bag into water and that bag inflates. I mean, not inflates. Whatever. It just puffs up like a big cement bag. And it's basically as hard as a cement bag. So they tried to sell it to the people that were looking for products in that show that they were hosting. Because it wasn't just a show and it wasn't just hosting. Okay, guys? There are a lot of businessmen or businesswomen, and you know, they buy products from people who make their own products. And there are a lot of people that are trying to make a business. They want to make their own shop, they want to make their own products, they want to be creative. And so there was these two guys when they introduced that product that was that bag that is not any ordinary bag, and that it would be like a concrete cement inside. You know those cement, um dry cement powder, the mix, to a point where it's in a bag. It was kind of like cement powder, cement mix in a bag. Because there are times where, in order to make the cement hard, you have to add water to it. You have to wet it to make it into like uh, a stone hardened version of cement. You know, if you use cement with water, you have the mix of cement with water, you can turn it into a brick. Okay, bricks are just made of cement. Concrete is made from cement. But sometimes the concrete that they have, they would recycle it and turn it to cement and redo it and turn it into a brick. You see, a lot of stuff in this world can be recycled, okay? And this is a point I'm proving, that a lot of services, they're not listening to their customers. And that's the example I'm putting for Nintendo. All this stuff I'm saying is just an example for what Nintendo is, you know, and what our president is. See, our president is a different story. He rips off people, and in fact, he steals from other people's savings in their banks, okay? He even steals from business owners' earnings, investments from their bank, okay? But he can't steal a lot. He has to steal one bit from one bank, from a business owner, and another amount of money from a different business owner, and then combine all that money to make it look like nothing happened, to cover his tracks. So that way, now he tries to make it where business owners go against each other and white voters go against other side that are different nationality. Why? Because Trump, at first, he was trying to bring white supremacists, to put them against Black Americans, Latinos, Spanish, Puerto Rican, whatever, right? We, the people here, who are different nationality, is an example for what a lot of these businesses are becoming. And a lot of this, when I learned all this, is because I looked up things on my phone, or I watch the news to see what Trump does that affects the markets. And everything that happens to the markets is a political issue due to our, you know, fearless president. Like I always say, he is the fearless president. Why? He says he's not afraid of anything. Okay? And yet he tries to rely on guards to defend his ass. I know there's a chance I could get demonetized on YouTube, but like because of the way I'm speaking, I'm expressing how I feel about a lot of things that I like to get becomes something that is not the thing it's supposed to become. So when all these businesses start like when because Nintendo is starting to get greedy and say, "Oh, we own all this. We own all this. We own all this." They don't own anything. Those games were made by an actual company, a developing company that has a studio that they decide to go to Nintendo in a studio in the Nintendo building because it's like Sony, right? PlayStation comes from the Sony markets. And it's not just the PlayStation, it's movies too. And did you see now Nintendo starting to head in the direction of making films? If you haven't noticed, they never had made films. Square Enix? Maybe, because they were originally a Japanese company. See, and there are some American companies, but those companies that usually make movies are usually around Hollywood, okay? Or Las Vegas or something. Some place where they can bring and wow the crowd, okay? And I looked at a lot of videos where, you know, think about it. A lot of these celebrities went through despair, quite a lot of them. Even in past, there were celebrities that committed suicide. And guess what happened? One of the celebrities I admired the most. I loved watching his movies. And yeah, he committed suicide. And then there was a guy that works for the Food Channel. He had a program. And then he had a program in a different channel. This guy was Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, he committed suicide too. But nobody knows how they ended up killing themselves. There are a lot of speculations and rumors because nobody knows how Robin Williams died. Some people seem to say it's because he hanged himself. We don't really know that yet. And we might never know that because we didn't know how he was feeling. And he actually was one of those celebrities that also worked for Hollywood at the same time as other studios. See? So, so there were two celebrities that tried to reveal what Hollywood is like. If you want to say it in a way, I would, and in my way, I would say it's like a mafia organization, but it's not really a mafia organization. It's just someone who controls the business in Hollywood, who makes a contract with you, and that contract has a little print in the bottom. Kind of like what Trump did with a lot of bills, okay? He tries to make bills, which is for law changing and a lot of rule changing, that they have a little print in the bottom. Yeah, that's called a gimmick and a scam to rip off and not reveal the truth, because some people don't pay attention to a small print in the bottom of the contract, in the bottom of the bill. The bill is just a contract, okay? To like change certain things in the city. And I learned that tariffs, some of them change and increase the prices of the products to come here. Others changes healthcare service, okay, and bills together with those tariffs, because the tariffs will affect how medication, medicine that comes here for the pharmacies legally, and his own colleagues, him and his colleagues like Ted Cruz. I wouldn't say Marco Rubio, because I know when I look at him every time in the news where he's with Trump, because Trump forces him to go there to be involved in his situation. And Marco Rubio, when I look at him, he looks terrified, man. I wouldn't blame him. But me, I'm not afraid of Trump, okay? His men, his army is not really an army. But yes, they have guns. Why? Because they have cheap guns, not nuclear guns. But can a regular gun, a regular pistol from this timeline, just like made of iron, okay, it's made from whatever a gun is made from now these days. Because there were some equipment like guns and all these other different guns. They took it without the government knowing, okay? And back then, when Trump took office for the first time and became president for the first time, people believed that he was going to try and make good, that he was telling the truth, that he was honest. No. When he said something good, he meant the opposite, saying he was going to do good, but he said he's going to do bad. When he said he would bring and build a wall around the borders, he meant that we'll bring it down. We won't put any walls, you know? And plus, when he started putting people to put the wall, those people say, screw you. If you ain't paying me, then I ain't gonna serve you and build this wall. Because they did actually started trying to build the wall. Because they forced Mexicans to build the wall. Because Trump wants to make Mexicans or any Spanish person his lab rat, his experiment, his his slave. And so I'm Puerto Rican, and I say this every time when I live stream, because Trump is watching everything. And when I mean everything, It's not just news reporters, it's also live streams that happen on other social media platforms, okay? And if I had one thing to say to him, I would say to him, if you're not afraid, come to me solo. Come to the Puerto Ricans solo. Come to the people that are citizens solo and tell us in our faces that we are considered immigrants. And I was born here, and he would still say I'm an immigrant. So I give him this message if he ever watches my social video. I dare you, Trump, if you want to tell the citizens of this town, of this city, what to do, come and handle it yourself. And you know you won't be able to because you have a target on your back by the whole country. It's not the Spanishes, it's the protesters that were protesting before. But why did they stop protesting? It was like they said, it ain't even worth it anymore. This guy is stupid. They're gonna go after him, not us, right? So they're like, we're just gonna do our own thing. So now everybody in the city, they're ignoring him. They're just letting him put more trouble towards himself. Think of it as him having to deal with a lot more stress and a lot more worries and a lot more fear. And yet every time he goes to a rally, so he says that he's not afraid, right? But when you see his face, even when it's cold weather, he is sweating like hotcakes or not like hotcakes, sorry. I meant he's sweating like it's a waterfall drizzling from his face and his armpits, right? And he did have COVID one time, and when he had COVID, he told people that, oh, the vaccine we made will help you. It has bleach. Don't worry, bleach will take care of all the issues. How many of his supporters, because he gave them the wrong thing and they believed him, a lot of his supporters from COVID-19 who supported his ass, who he gave them fake and false vaccines, okay? And then blamed it on Biden and the Democrats. See, I know there's a bad history between both sides, okay? The Democrats have a dark history, but the Republicans have an even more darker history, okay? See, when we are considered Democrats, we're poor. We're not wealthy. Democrats aren't really that rich, but they have money to a point because they work hard for their job and their money that they earn from that job. But like they're not rich, they're not wealthy. And I learned that some Republicans are actually considerate about genders of other people and children. Because I saw when I was watching the news, there was a man who had a problem with Trump because he was talking about transgenders or gays or whatever. And this guy who was a Republican member, who was an old man, who was not really an old man, but he was a father, okay? And he got mad with what Trump said. He had no agreements with what Trump said. And so, there are Republicans with children who are transgender or sometimes gay children because when they're teenagers, they think that the love they have is for guys. You know, there's different types of love, there's different types of romances, there's different types of relationships. You got straight, you got lesbians, you got gay, okay? And a real lovers who are lesbians wouldn't abuse no relationship that they have towards each other. They would just give each other a kiss and that's it. You know? One of the wife who is known as the husband and the other wife who is known as the wife, you know? Because sometimes there's girls that are tomboys, and some of these tomboys, they like other girls, okay? It don't matter whether it's transgender or not. A transgender could like a girl too, okay? Even though the transgender person herself. And the reason why I say herself is because to respect the way transgenders think of themselves, okay? And they would admit, sometimes they would admit, that is just a mental illness. But sometimes they would mention that's just the way they were born, okay? That's just the way they were born thinking like. You can't abuse people and take away their freedom just because they're different. And, there are a lot of business owners, like, the person who, I believe it's the person who, I think is the person who wrote the story from Harry Potter. Yeah, it was a guy, but this guy was transgender. And, people were like, he's what do you call it? Transphobic. If he's a transgender, he don't think of himself as a he. He thinks of himself as a she. So he is for example, is a she because that's the way she realized she was transgender. Okay? There are some people that aren't aware of their gender when they don't know how they think. When they think something, they start to realize, why do I like it, my relation, this way? Why am I a guy who likes a guy? Or why am I a guy who's a girl who likes a girl? Okay? But this guy thinks he's a girl because that's the way he is. That's the way she is. And when I say she is, because I used he is, but then I used the word she is. See how confusing that is? Because that's to prove a point that I say she, not he. And you have to respect people of any gender. Don't matter if it's gay, lesbian, straight, or different nationality like Spanish. Puerto Ricans are Spanish, of course. Um, Peru, people from Peru, or Dominicans, or Venezuelans, or Africans, or Black Americans, because they are human beings. And I put this whole conversation because that's what the whole world has come to. Not only with business owners, because there are business owners that are born different. Okay? Everybody is born different. They are never born the same. And what I mean by different is the way they think. Okay? And the way the looks are. Okay? Like, I've watched a lot of VTubers and came to realize, because when I met a friend who was watching my stream on PlayStation 4, Diablo 3. And when I was like, hey man, want to add me on the phone? We can hang out. We could, you know, be friends. You sound like a cool person. And when I meant sound, it was expression because the words he typed, he was like a good person. And he is a good person. This guy is a father. He has a wife. He has a child. And he is my best buddy. And I respect him. And he understands me. And so he also respects me. And there are times where I won't understand him. Yeah. And then I'll try to be as quiet as possible. I would try my best to be as quiet as possible because I have a disability called hyperactive tension disorder. That's another disability that I never mentioned. So I get really talkative, sometimes to a point where when someone's trying to talk to me, I get excited and talk back, you know? And so, but every now and then, I try my best to listen to other people and hear their expression, hear how they feel, hear what they're going through. Watch the news, different sources, and I'll tell you right now, Fox News, they're done with Trump's ass. Why? Because they don't even like him anymore. Because he promised them if they make it look like he's good, that he would pay them for them making him look good. Or he would say something like praising them and stuff. Yeah, uh-huh. He praises them, but the problem is he never paid them shit, and now they don't like his ass because they're starting to find out the hardcore darn truth. So now they know what he did, but some of the Fox News reporters, they still say good things about him, even though he never did nothing good for us. And all that is an example. Everything of that, a lot of that has a lot to do with other businesses and other people who own those businesses. Even if the business and it's a franchise from Japan or from here, like, you gotta admit, guys, you let me know if I'm right or wrong because I look at everything that this guy does. And if you're gonna tell me I'm wrong, oh, you're stupid, you know? Because I know that when a person has his own opinion, I just won't say nothing. If he says, "Oh, I support Trump," I'll just say, "Okay, I don't say nothing." Right? I stay quiet because I used to have friends from back then, and I had an old friend on PS4 that used to join the stream of mines in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Because when I first got Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 on the PS4, I said, you know what? I'm going to stream it, right? And so he ended up in my chat in the live stream. And so his real name, I found out because, I wanted to respect him. I wanted him to see me as me, not as someone who don't care about another person. Not me as a person who just wants to disrespect other people. Okay? So the first time when I met my friend that I met through a Diablo 3 stream on the PS4. And this was after I took those other friends out, okay? Because at that time, this guy says, no, Trump ain't the bad guy. He's a good president, dude. He is my idol. I was like, dude, okay, whatever. And then we can't be friends no more. And because we don't have nothing in common, and we do have some stuff in common, like games, but like, then I was like, nah, no, I'm removing him. He's an asshole. I'm blocking him. But there was another friend that I met through another friend that I met through him in a stream. So there was one guy streaming on YouTube playing Kingdom Hearts. So I was like, how's it going, guys? You guys have a good stream. And so I started talking to the other friend that I made through his stream because this guy, he's going through a rough time and he's not really on a lot that much. So what I did was, because he's not usually online a lot and we don't hang out enough, I just deleted him off my friends list. I didn't block him. I removed him from my friends list because if the person ain't gonna bother to hang out with other people, see, I don't block them because blocking to me is not my way. But like, there was another friend, because I met through that person who was streaming, I made them both as friends. One of them friends that I never mentioned political to him. I mentioned how the taxes here for certain products are going up. And so he started mentioning, well, I think the market's fine. And he's not a bad person, you know, he's a really good person. It's just he's being misleaded. He is thinking that Trump is actually improving the market because he started mentioning, well, I think our president now that we have for the United States is actually helping the prices. And I told him, uh, just wait and find out. You'll see. And there were times in my head, and I was thinking in my head, should I keep the chance and keep him as a friend and let him find out, just wait it out and just try to hang out with as much as I can with him and not mention anything about politics? Because we had a lot of things in common when it came to games, and when Pokemon put a lawsuit against Palworld, because he actually plays Palworld. But the problem is in a political way, we have no agreements whatsoever. Because I kept sharing some of my opinions, and for different things that was wrong that Trump did, and that some good things that Obama or Biden did. And then he gave me some of his opinions saying, well, I think the market's improving actually. And I was like, well, can I share with you my opinion about the market? I think that it sucks. But then I was like, you know what? Let's just play the games and not talk about politics. And then after that, I did hang out with like him one or two times. I hanged out with one or two times with him, and then I left the party chat because there were times where I was dealing with like real reality issues, okay? And not only due to watching a lot of things that are happening to the country, people in the countryside, like Palestinians and Trump telling the Jews that the Palestinians are your enemy. You should take back the land that they stole for you, and I will help you get your land back. Guess what? He can't get involved in that. Okay? He can't get involved in that because now the Palestinians were relying on Iranians. And if you think about it, Iranians are like Palestinians and Jews. It's just they're in different parts of Israel. Okay? Iran is in the other side of Israel. So Palestinians could easily make it to the Iranians. Why? If you think about it, Jew and Iranian, okay? You have a Jewish and Iran. What does that usually mean, right? They're both Jews, if because they're in the same part of that location, but just on the other side. But like, it's crazy, man. When when Netanyahu abused Palestinians, he also betrayed his own people, misleading his people. There are a lot of Jews that take it the wrong way about the US people. Okay? There is a guy, and I don't want to say it, I'll just say it anyways. His name on YouTube or Twitch is Hassan, okay? And when other YouTubers, the way they see this world as it is right now, with Trump as a leader, because I watched this one YouTuber and he also does Twitch videos, Twitch stream, and his name, or not his name, his username on Twitch and YouTube is usually Asmongold, and he has a lot of hate towards him because there's two content creators that I know that I look at, pay attention to, because Tectone reacts to those two YouTubers, which are also Twitch streamers. One of them goes by Hassan, but in his channel is Hasanabi. The other one is a female, but it's not that, she just doesn't understand, okay? Because, and she has an OnlyFans page. So when Tectone reacted to her because someone asked her in her stream while she was recording that stream as a clip. When you live stream for like the amount of time I have live streamed just now. Yeah, that's how long a lot of different content creators stream for. Around an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. And then they make another stream another 2 hours, right? Some people would make 1 hour stream first, and then after a while, they would make like another 2 hours worth in one stream, and then they'll make another 2 hours because that's 5 hours of stream in that one day. That is 5 hours of content in a day. See, I looked at a lot of reactions of Tectone with Asmongold, and I'm not self-promoting them. I'm just, respecting them, okay? And I'm just a small YouTube streamer. I'm not that big, okay? And do I want to try to become someone that can earn his viewers? Yeah. someone who can earn subscribers with people who understand where I'm coming from, yeah. It don't matter even if you don't understand where I'm coming from, even if you have a different opinion, I wouldn't have beef with you. It's just I won't talk to you if you mention politics that I don't agree with that opinion. But like there are times where certain people on YouTube take advantage of speaking about politics, and then they try to abuse the YouTube term of service, trying to ban someone who's either bigger content creator or smaller content creator. But you know what's the worst ones? That the worst praise are the smaller content creators, the smaller streamers, such as myself. So I guarantee you guys, I know Hasanabi still has his channel still going, even on YouTube, even on Twitch, because there are times where Tectone reacts to new videos and new streams that he posts on his channel. So if he does see my channel and see this video of me explaining that he is taking things too far, and so is this female YouTuber that is known as Denims. She took something a little too far. And this was her when she was reacting to Tectone, but not her. She wasn't reacting to like the situation where her OnlyFans, she never. This wasn't that. This was when Tectone, a YouTuber, a normal human being, even on social media, he is a normal human being because we are real people. We're just using technology to teach other people or express ourselves, right? I'm not answering my phone. Uh, I'm pretty sure my sister is texting me, and she probably listening to me because I'm too loud. But I feel like Denims just made fun of Tectone when he was talking about something serious. Because even I watched his regular video that he uploaded where he explains how his father, to him in his eyes and in his soul and in mind, body, and spirit, he thinks of his father always as his hero. Because why? He said that his father served the military. So his father served the military. He did his service. I agree. If a person who serves the military of the United States, they're not just protecting their own family, they're also protecting their people, their citizens, their allies, you know? And when Tectone explained another thing, that when a person goes to war in the battlefield, and I never been in a battlefield, but I've been bullied a few times when I used to go to school. So I understand the meaning scarred mentally and emotionally, because some of those scars for emotionally was, because my mom felt that sadness way too many times. I felt it way too many times, but I don't bottle it up. My mom always usually bottled it up after she just, she became emotionless. She had no emotions that she can let out, that sadness. But like people go through emotional things in life in different ways. And so I know how it feels to see a corpse right in front of you. Okay? When you go to a funeral, I may not know how it feels like to see someone in person get shot by a gun, but I know what it feels like to hear if a family got shot. Okay? I remember one of my younger cousins' dad, okay? And this was with another one of my younger cousins who is now a lot more mature. And his mother is also my cousin. I can't say identifying, but I will let you know that, you know, they know what it's like to have to struggle, and they feel stress, of course. My older cousin, alongside her son, but her herself, she had a lot of rough moments. I'm not going to mention her name. I'm just going to mention the things that I learned that a lot of my families go through. Okay? So, and I know how to treat a child. Okay? I have an older cousin who smokes, of course. I don't say the name of her, I just say the things that I try to explain to her, that she's too strict with her children. So, there was a time where she had to bring two of her children, one daughter, one of her son. She left them in Puerto Rico, my hometown, with their father, okay? Because I feel like I understand that she just couldn't handle too much. And plus, she can't afford probably to take too much. I'm not too I'm not too sure if that was the cause, but it could be, because not everybody saves their money for the right things. She had a rough life, as maybe, I don't really know her life, but if I can ask her and try to understand the things that she's been through, her history when she was young, growing up, I would like to learn about that. I would like to hear her and see her expressing herself. And I would not tell other people what that person in the family been through. Okay? There was times where I did do that, but I stopped, you know? And so my aunt and my uncle, who usually comes here in the weekends or sometimes weekly, you know, uh, hold on, guys. I want to check if. Oh, okay. Uh, no problem. Because if they no, if you guys ever feel like or better I should say if my uncle if no you know what if you guys come then you guys uh, come no worries. If you're if you can't make it today, there's always tomorrow. If not, then maybe next week. It's all right. I will hang out with you on Google. I put two words together. Google Meet. When whenever you're feeling up for it. And then emote, sparkly heart, smiley face, and angel face. Me, my mom, and my dad we we can we will wait, or should I say always, my mom, and my dad will always welcome you guys. We're family. Might as well put another emoji. Well, not emoji, more like a happy gift picture type of thing. Um, all right, where was I? Um, so yeah, I I know how it feels like to see a corpse, but I don't know how it feels like to see a person get shot right in front of you. But when you look at the news, because what they show in the news is actually real, I have seen things in reality that things that happen in reality that comes up reported where people are just in a body bag, like they're just corpses in a body bag. And like I feel bad for those people. And when I watched this big content creator, Tectone, and I saw his video where he mentions that his father, served the military. But when he served the military, it's not just protecting family, it's to protect his allies and his citizen, everybody. He's not just doing a service for family, he's doing a service for everyone who lives in this state. And I would think of him as my hero too. Any military who does their service In my eyes, in my heart, they're considered heroes. But Trump, he screws up the security. He is the worst president. And so, if anyone ever responded and said, well, uh, I think he's a pretty good president, then I'm just gonna stay quiet. Or I'll just leave the party chat and I'll just hang out with one of my friends in another party chat when I make a party chat. But I would wait for my friend, you know? So if my friend who knows that the guy he voted for or he would support, another person would support that he made as a friend, that other person thinks of Trump as the one who does everything. And my other friend, my real friend, that I not only talk to in the PlayStation social space, but I speak to him on my phone. And so if he's gonna hang out with someone, I respect his wishes. I let him hang out with whoever he hangs out with. Because I don't have no say on an adult man like him who he should hang out with. See, and the person may be one of the coolest person ever, even if his opinion is different. But for me, I don't want to take that risk hanging out with someone that supports a guy with a reputation that's really bad as a president. So I would just leave him alone with him because, no agreements, no opinions that we agree on either. So, but I did met one of his friends before, and this was when I got into Path of Exile 2. And he had some opinions that I agree with, like the tariffs that Trump did a lot of places in. And so, because I heard what he goes through, that he's not able to receive money. And that means that's going to be hard for him to pay bills. And he has Social Security, but the problem is the Social Security is here in this part of the city, this part of the location, in the city here. Not in my location, but like in the city in general, in New York, where the Social Security for everybody here that exists in here in the US, in New York. But like when I heard how tariffs actually affect, it doesn't just affect the prices of marketing or the prices of how much the person from the countryside brings the product here to sell for. It also affects Social Security. And I try to make sure to look up all that. And yeah, he may have some opinions that I don't agree with, but those are his opinions. But at least I can agree on something that I now understand. That when he was talking about tariffs preventing his paycheck to come to him in where he usually lives, um, and of course he's worried about his wife from time to time because she's Spanish, but not Puerto Rican. But like, it's sad to see what this whole nation has become, but I see the bright picture. The bright picture is, you see, Trump took Putin to Alaska yesterday. They showed when they came back from Alaska because nobody was allowed, no reporter was allowed to interview him while he was in in Alaska, where there's a military base there. So, but the thing is, I think of another bright way because my dad told me that he can't get any equipment from there and give it to Putin. Why? Because they're watching the people in Alaska. There's a small village in Alaska, like a rural area, and they have electricity somewhat, but it depends on where in Alaska they are in. Because I know that there are a lot of places that have technology, but in the cold areas, when you use a phone or when you use internet, because there are towns in Alaska and they have some electricity there and they have some reception there because they get it from the support of the United States around the world, where we made trade deals, we send a deal, we make a deal, we make a bargain, we agree to certain prices that we're gonna give each other a deal with for products or farming goods or anything. So, like, I'm pretty sure if maybe the government, like the Democratic side, ever saw my video, and if they could ever acknowledge me when I'm an older man, when I'm like in my 50s or 40s, because that'll be the time where I have no one around me in the house, and I would have to have a family member from another side of the area here in the city, to come and keep an eye out on me because I'm not really much of a chef. I can't really cook worth a damn, but there is one thing I can cook, but I can't always rely on that one: nutrition. Yeah, eggs has its nutrition values. Yeah, um, cereal has its nutrition values. But the only thing I know how to make is an omelet or an egg or something. Because those are the simplest things I can do. I can only do the simplest things because I have ADHD, I have slight autism, I have hyperactive tension disorder, I have slow learning, and all of these things. Back then, I didn't even know what these were and that I had these disabilities. And so, I try to take care of myself a little more easier. And so, um, maybe later, because now I just made this a 2-hour stream of nonstop examples, ranting, wisdom, everything in one stream, that a person could ever hope for. So that way, if they're interested in my opinions and my knowledge to an extent where they will also understand what I'm saying and what I say, that everyone in this world is going through struggles. Like us, me and my family, we're going through struggles. Of course, life ain't easy, life ain't too hard, but the leader of the world, the president of the United States, can make it to a point where it is going to be hard. But will there be people that will see you and ask you if you want to work for them, and you know, really good people, business owners, actual business owners, and they're willing to help you out. There's always someone in this world that is willing to help another person. Like, I'm willing to do whatever I can to spread the knowledge, whatever I find out, whatever I learn from history and YouTube or news, or even searching history about what went on in the old political days. But, alright, guys, I hope this video doesn't bore you, and I hope there's people that would listen to this message. I know I wasn't playing, but I was supposed to be playing, but like, I got too caught up in the whole letting know thing in the stream thing, because, I understand a lot of content creators got it rough, Tectone has it rough, but he takes it breezy, because there are times where he will take time off, you know, because when he receives comments on his live streams in the chat, there are times where there'll be toxic people who will bring toxicity towards his viewers, and he wouldn't want to be bad to them, but when you have to take action, you just have to take action. It is what it is. And that's the line I got from Asmongold. It is what it is. And I even got that from Tectone. But like, all right, guys. I'll make a stream soon again.